Wonderful people. Thank you so much for making time. We are so grateful. Remember, the benefit of not just reviewing the YouTube channel recordings is that when you are present live, you do get your CEUs, and so that's the reason we want to encourage more people to be live. We want to encourage that because I want you guys to share your stories, to chat with us, and to bring safety to at this discussion that we're having every month. Um, Thank you, Veronica. Thank you to UCLA, UCI for helping us put together this good 1 hour quick topics. Lockout Tagout is very close to my heart because I've been out there inspecting many of your facilities. Thank you for inviting me, those of you that are on this call, that are my clients, and that you have actually scheduled inspections where we go out there. We've seen issues with Lockout Tagout, and many times safety directors or human resources departments who are doing both roles and doing safety as well become overwhelmed by this issue of lockout tagout, especially because I go out there and I tell them, each machine that you have here should have their own written procedures. And they go, oh my gosh, seriously, are you kidding me? And a lot of these procedures get passed on verbally. And so if something happens, something goes wrong, you're going to get cited because when something goes wrong regarding to lockout tagout, usually someone loses a finger or even the tip of a finger, or there's some sort of permanent disfiguration and it's not good. So OSHA is going to show up. So today I'm going to talk about, first of all, what is it for those of you that are newer to this topic? And we're going to talk about some of the requirements for those of you here in California. The regulation federally is very close. It's not that very different. There's some nuances as always, but we're going to focus on the California regulation, which is strict enough to get the job done. But if you are in another state, you need to look into your own state regulations. If you want to invite us to come over and take a look at what you're doing, please do contact Veronica and we can do the training for you. We're gonna talk about some of the training requirements, and we can actually take a look at what you have right now and see if there's some deficiencies, which is also a very good thing to do. Um, Okay, with this in mind, another thing, I do have some videos because it's hard to talk about lockout tagout without visualizing machines, hardware, etc., and not seeing exactly what is she talking about. So I do have some videos. I'm going to stop them. They're not going to play fully, but when you receive a copy of the presentation today, you're going to get the links to these videos because I find them that they illustrate the point. Another very key thing, I do not sponsor any of the products that you will see on these videos, neither does UCLA UCI, okay? The Southern California NIOSH Education and Research Center is not is sponsoring or favoring any of the products on, we haven't even tested them, none of that. Is simply with educational and informational purposes, okay? So that's a very specific disclaimer here. I don't want you to later on say, oh, well, that's what they played in the video there, so might be good, or this is what we have to do. No, this is just for you to see what someone else is doing, products or anything on the videos, nothing to do with me, Compliance Solutions, or UCLA, UCI, Southern California NIOSH Education and Research Center. Whoa, that was a long disclaimer. But, it's all about making sure that we know where are we at. That's my information. You're going to get a copy of the presentation. You can look me up, my website. You can also go to the OSHA website and find my name there as one of the bilingual trainers to go out there and do 10 hours, 30 hours, you name it. Call us up. So I always do this introduction or 2 minutes before I start full blast with my topic to just let you know what's up there. And because after all, this is an updates webinar. So you do want to keep updated with what's new with CalOSHA. And so one of the easiest things to do is to visit the site or to be subscribed to their email and newsletters. They let you pick what you want to receive. And another thing is if you're in healthcare, you got to subscribe to the emails and notices to your own health department, your agency, your local agency, and also to the California Department of Public Health, because you want to be really on top of new things, new diseases, new changes, new requirements, new regulations. So on the first CalOSHA homepage for workers, it caught my attention that We have the Protect and Temporary Agency employees and the Young Workers programs, which right now is incredibly important for those of you that hire people during the holidays. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, by the way. So if that is something that happens at your facility where you see an increase of hiring, so we have new employees either from a temp agency or simply because during the last quarter of the year you do hire more personnel in order to get the job done. There's a lot of very good links. And for the Protect and Temporary Agency employees, you will find an actual 2-page handout that allows you to see what does it mean to be a primary employer? What does it mean to be a secondary employer? That you need to have a contract between you and that temp agency, and that you have to be very good at understanding who has the responsibility to train these people, who has the responsibility to provide these safety programs. So that is very key in that regard. And in regards to young people, what Cal OSHA says is that young people are usually not very familiar with any regulations because when they're hired temporarily or just for high season, they are brand new to the workplace. And so they have no idea what Cal OSHA is. They have no idea what a safety data sheet is. So every time you are onboarding young workers, you have to be very good at your new work orientation program. Make sure that they know what you're all about and how you keep them safe. So those are two of the things that I really want to make sure you guys look into. So go to the homepage for Cal OSHA and take a look at those 2 links and dive in, especially for the holidays. You are hiring more people. These are my learning objectives for today. The control of hazardous energy. And let's backtrack a little bit. What is lockout tagout, right? Because I want to make sure that you do know. So lockout tagout means when you use certain devices to actually isolate any energy. So this has to do with the fact of you either trying to clear a jam from a piece of equipment or machinery, or servicing or giving maintenance to equipment and machinery at your facility, and following a procedure so no one gets hurt. Because what if that all of a sudden someone comes around and turns the on and off button on, thinking that, I don't know why this machine is off. And they turn it on, and then you're in there fixing or unjamming, and your hand is in the way, and somebody else who doesn't see you turns the machine back on, and there goes your hand. This is what this topic is all about. So that is important. I want to make sure that you understand that controlling that hazardous energy, meaning that release of energy being thermal, mechanical, gravity, inertia, any kind of energy at the point where people are doing work tasks. And I'm going to talk about some of the definitions that have to do with, servicing, repairing, unjamming, that kind of thing, that they are protected. So that's going to be our first objective, of course. And then the second one is running lockout tagout the right way. And in real life, seeing what goes wrong when we don't have machine specific procedures, which is the one that gives always a headache to all of my safety directors and my human resources people, that they go, wait a minute, we do have a lockout tagout. I have a program, I can show it to you, but then you have only one very general step-by-step lockout tagout procedure. And it's not specific to the 10 different machines you have out there. A lathe, a conveyor belt, a grinder. You don't have it specific for each of those machines. So, and then fixing the missing piece. Many times we know that what's going on is not so much that we don't have these procedures in writing, is that our safety culture hasn't been there all along. And so we've gotten our employees used to doing things a certain way. So they're in a hurry, they'll unjam it, and they do this without lockout tagout because they continue to do it over and over, and they have never gotten hurt. And so there's this false sense of security that when they open the gate, if it's an interlock guard, that they can put their hand in. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. How do we improve these issues of safety culture? All right. So why is this topic so important? There is an actual site in Cal OSHA, or a link to the top 10 most frequently cited. Now, I don't want you to think that the only reason I want you to know this topic is because I don't want you to get cited by Cal OSHA. mind you, most of you are coming from the supervisory or management side of the equation. So you do want to make sure you don't get citations. But the bottom line here is we care for our employees. We don't want them to get hurt because once they get hurt, it's a lose-lose situation, right? So that's why this topic is super important because Lockout Tagout is always one of the top 10 most frequently cited for California OSHA and nationwide. OSHA issues about 2,500 to 3,000 citations each year, most of them to general industry because general industry is everything but construction or maritime or mining. So mining, construction, maritime, they have their own set of rules. But in general industry, and mind you, a lot of the people in general, in construction even, sometimes may do or perform maintenance activities that are considered general industry. So mostly in manufacturing, nevertheless, that doesn't mean if you don't have a manufacturing plant, this is not going to happen to you. Remember, anytime you have a piece of equipment that needs to be repaired, maintained, unjammed, Lockout Tagout will apply. There's very few exceptions, okay? There's some exceptions, like the cord and plug. Nevertheless, this is why. And I just did this screenshot because Lockout, Tagout, and then it has the regulation number 3314, California Code of Regulations 3314. It's number 6, was number 6 for 2024, for the fiscal year of 2024, but it's always fluctuating between 5, 7, 6. So it's always one of the top 5 most cited for employers that are not doing everything that like they're supposed to and according to the regulation. So I always recommend that you read the reg. So there's a number 3314. So read it. It's a little bit boring always, but it does open up your eyes to say, oh, this is why I need to do this, right? And in the regulation, or I should say in the Kalosha webpage, there's an e-tool that comes with wonderful resources, starting with definitions. And so what is lockout tagout, right? Lockout means the use of devices, positive methods and procedures to effectively isolate or secure prime movers, meaning the source of mechanical power, machinery, and equipment from hazardous energy sources. Examples of these hazardous energy sources include mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, electrical, thermal, and other sources. And one same machine may have 3 or 4 of them, right? It might be a dough mixer, and this dough mixer is connected to the wall, it's electrical, but it also has a spring, right, for the actual mixing motion. And so now you have the mechanical, you have the electrical, and maybe this mixer tilts, during a certain amount of process. So now you also have that motion of when the bowl or the basin or whatever you're mixing with tilts. And so gravity or inertia may be also another type of energy that you need to block and tag out before you unjam it. That kind of thing. So we need to look at several types of energy that our machines and our equipment have in order to isolate it, in order for us to do the task safely so that everyone goes home with all their toes, fingers, arms attached, just like the same way they got to you. That's how you want to send them back home. All right. So let me see if we could. I'm going to show you guys a little bit that link to the actual e-tool. Here you go. So it's a wonderful, most of the time, people say, oh, well, the website for the Department of Industrial Relations is so, it's not specific to CalOSHA. That's true. You can see here that it has labor law, then there's CalOSHA, there's different tabs. So make sure that you're in the proper tab, which is the CalOSHA tab, right? And then it's an e-tool, as you can see. And it goes home, the real world, definitions, when is it required, other requirements, materials and hardware, the actual procedures. So that's an acronym for the actual procedures, the written procedures, hazardous energy control procedures. And then it tells you what they need to outline, etc. So, and it gives you the steps, which you're going to talk about as well. So it's a fantastic e-tool that I want you to take your time and take a look at. Because it does guide you and it gives you links to the reg, and it just kind of gives you real world, what happens, trapped janitor dies inside an industrial dryer. I think that he was trapped inside. Yeah, the victim remained trapped inside until the drying cycle was completed. He died 30 minutes later of severe burns and blunt head trauma. These are awful horror stories, and these are the ones that I I can see here in the Kalosha website, but we all have our own stories, and I'll tell you a couple of mine that stories that I've gathered through the years working with you guys. Worker loses part of a finger from clearing a jam. It's very common that when clearing jams, workers do not apply Lockout Tagout, and we are required to do so. It goes into cost, etc. So I want to show you that there's a beautiful e-tool there. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. All right, and then when it says which employees are at risk of injury, this is a screenshot from the actual e-tool. And it talks about, the affected employees, the authorized employees. So we'll talk about it in a moment. But these definitions and the e-tool will go into specifics, such as what is an energy isolating device? And so you have here the electrical energy isolating device in the picture, right? And that mechanical device is the one that physically will prevent transmission of that energy, right? So once you put it in the off position, now you apply the Lotto hardware, which is the device, a specific lock, not a lock that you would use on your fence, on a gate, at the yard, a lock that everyone uses, and there's the little key for it. No, it's got to be specific for lockout tagout. There's some actual requirements that you can read in the regulation as well as for tags as well, that they have to be affixed and they have to withstand, weather conditions and 50 pounds of pulling force, etc. And after all, this is all done. So this is an example of electrical energy being locked out, right? So you put it in the off position, so you're actually isolating or stopping electrical energy from going to the machine. So you're going to the source. You're not just turning off the machine. You're actually walking all the way to the electrical panel to put it in the off position and stop that energy going and feeding your machine. That's what this is all about, right? And I'm just talking about electrical, but remember, there's different types of energy that you must go to the source and lock it out, meaning isolate it. You don't want it there if you're going to be repairing, adjusting, unjamming, etc. So the goal of lockout tagout is to completely remove all sources of energy. So there is no unexpected, because if your hand is in there and you forgot that spring, it's going to go all out the moment you remove the jam, there it goes your hand, there it goes your finger. So it's always protecting that worker from that unexpected release at any point in time with that work activities being done, right? So here's an example of when things go wrong. And please share your stories. I love when you guys share your stories. This one is a real case, real scenario. There's this machine which has this elevator mechanism, and it's enclosed, of course, because these are moving parts and there's a regulation, right? Guarding. You always have to guard moving parts that may cause injury to the worker who's operating the machine or the workers that are around the machine and that could accidentally fall into or be injured by the moving equipment. So in this case, this elevator type of movement, as you can see in the picture, was enclosed. There's guards. But once in a while, because of the debris that accumulates between the parts as it goes up all through that drive motor and the driving head, the pulley, which is, bringing all the material up in an elevator type of motion, those buckets sometimes get filled a little bit more than you would want them to. And then that extra debris, or if it's product, gets the machine stuck, right? You can see that because of the way it is enclosed and the way those buckets go up, there might be that extra debris, and all of a sudden stops working. You can hear it getting jammed, and you're like, oh, goodness gracious. So now we gotta unjam it. And so here is what happened. So workers were used to unjamming it on their own and not waiting for the maintenance guy, especially during the night shift. So the maintenance crew did not work during the night shift. So they had to wait till the morning for them to come around and do the lockout tagout and do the unjamming. But it was regular practice to say, hey, this is our shift. We got to get these machines going. We got to produce. We're in a hurry. We are under this constant demand to produce. So instead of thinking safely, they're thinking we got to keep producing. We got to show for our bosses that we do great, that our shift is the best, whatever it is. So the culture for safety is not there. They don't stop. There's no actual reminders during training, tailgate meetings that any equipment and machinery that has a written procedure for lockout tagout, and then you know which machines and that jam often that this is what you have to follow. There's none of that, right? So although the supervisor during the night shift knows that there's lockout tagout for things like this when it jams, he's like, well, all we have to do is just let's open the door, the guard, part of the guard, and you can see right there all the debris accumulated. So let's just scoop it out. And to scoop it out, they start using, sticks or little shovels or little rake type of things, devices to reach in there and get the debris moving. Because historically, they know if they do this, with a little bit that they do this, it's going to get the machine moving, right? So they go, they turn off the machine, they remove the door, worker is standing there, and then he's like, okay, I'm getting tired, I need help, calls one of the buddies near him. Just happens to be that this buddy is a temp worker who's never received lockout tagout training, has no idea what's going on. All he knows is they need me to remove debris. So he starts removing debris with the coworker, and then break time. They go to break, they leave everything as it is because the machine is shut down, not locked out or tagged out. They just shut it off, right? Because they're hoping that as they remove the debris, the machine will restart and then they'll close the guard and hey, no one's the wiser. Everything keeps going, production goes, and things go on as usual. That's what usually happen. So now they come back from break and supervisor calls the worker, not the temp worker, but the other worker. And worker says, yeah. And he goes, come on over. I think that if we, and then they start talking about how they removed enough of the debris. And he's thinking, oh, well, but it hasn't moved the mechanism. And supervisors, I bet you if we turn on the machine and we force it a little bit, it'll get going. He goes, that's a good idea. And they go to the on switch to turn it on, but the machine is quite big. So where do you think the temp worker is at? Well, he finished his break and he's going back to what he was doing. So his arm is in there when the machine is turned on, and there goes the arm. So you can say, and you can see immediately, of course, supervisor is going to feel awful. He knows they didn't do lockout tagout. He knows they didn't do the right procedure. Coworker also knows this. The only one that doesn't know it is the temp worker whose arm was hurt. So we need to always think, now investigation takes place, Kalosha shows up. It's important for us to now really learn from our mistakes and see what is it that went wrong. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things that would be good. Okay, now there is a great example by the WorkSafe BC. This is about a sawmill and how it just really takes seconds to lose a limb. You will receive the link for this one. Veronica, do you think that we'll have a little bit of time for this video? I'll tell you when to stop it, just to kind of look at what this one brings to the table, please.
Sure, I'll go ahead and show it right now.
I'm Mike Bertrand, investigating officer with WorkSafe BC. In sawmills, cleaning out saws and clearing jams are done all the time. At 2 mills, these tasks went terribly wrong. The first mill produces fence boards. On the production line, logs are cut into cants by a scrag saw.
And in the
Cants are
meantime,
pulled
what I
along
want
the
to see
production line
is
by a log chain. The sawyer feeds the cants into the edger saw, which cuts them into
if any of you have written or
these
put
boards
down some
are
of
then
your
trimmed into fence pickets.
stories.
The accident happened close to
Okay, so the video is not playing and I'm not going to
Power
spend more
shutting
time.
down.
You're going to get the link though.
The video's not playing?
No,
Oh, it's showing on my end. Oh, okay.
no
Is it
problem. Let's go
okay?
ahead and just, you can see it. So,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
everybody can see it in here except me. That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Do you want me to play it all or just stop it there then?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Okay, you could go ahead and reshare your screen then, Alba.
So basically, the key to this one has to do with trying to clear a jam, right? How it just really takes seconds to lose a limb, and how easy, what I wanted to illustrate with this video, because I couldn't see it, but you guys could see it, how easy it was for the worker to just reach, because you could see the wooden debris that was jamming the machine, and it was so easy. But the actual mechanism, the motion for the saw that actually cuts this pieces of wood and makes it into picket fence type of 2x4s, if you will, is the fact that after, even if you isolate energy, there's always that residual motion from the saws rotating, and that's what got the limb off, right? And so the lesson for this video is all sources of energy need to be isolated. So not just locked out and tagged out, but what else? What residual energy is there that we might get hurt by if we try to unjam or to repair or maintain? So this is a great video for that purpose, and you will receive a link for that one. The next one, it's a great example. It is at the home page of the Kalosha, and it's a great example of a supervisor explaining to a worker not to reach inside the machine because she's going to get her fingers cut off, and explaining briefly how to apply lockout tagout. So I'm not going to play it right now. You take a look at that video on your own. But I love that issue of supervisor, very hands-on, telling her, I know this is where the jams happen often. Do not reach in. Do not put your fingers, because your finger's going to go. What I want you to do is you see the jam, and then you go up to the panel, and he walks with her to the panel, says you apply your lock, your tag, you verify with a switch that it's not going, and then you can clear the jam. So it's a very nice step-by-step, make it easy type of thing, lockout tagout. So it's not cumbersome, so the worker knows exactly what lockout tagout means just to clear that jam. So that's a good example. And then I want to go over this list because I do feel that these are the most common lockout tagout mistakes I see out there in the field when I visit. Number one, the jam thing. Machines, equipment gets jammed, and people are tempted to clear a jam because it looks very easy. So most of the time they can do it real quickly without anyone getting hurt. And so it's not a matter of they actually are lucky for a long period of time until someone is not lucky and they lose a finger, right? So the perfect example is the video with the sawmill, and then the example that I gave you guys with the elevator mechanism and people trying to get that debris out, workers trying to get that debris out, and how it's a jam. And they've done it like that before, but at some point, someone's going to get hurt. The next thing that I see is that being in a rush or having the worker feeling this demand to produce first, sometimes it's more powerful because that is the safety culture of the crew or the facility. Sometimes it's just the crew. It's interesting. Sometimes it's just the shift. That shift, for some reason, is a little bit different. The leadership and the safety culture hasn't improved, so they don't follow the written procedure because they think they got it down, and so they cut corners, etc. And a lot of the time is because, they've done it that way for so long. The next thing is your machinery and equipment has to have specific step-by-step procedures, lockout, tagout procedures. And that procedure has to say the name of the machine, where is it located at, identify the sources of energy. And so you can see, and you can go back and do now a little bit of to-dos for you is, I got to go back and review my lockout tagout program because I think ours is a pretty general procedure. I don't have one for my lathes and separate from my robotic arm, my palletizing robot, or whatever you have. They have to have separate procedures, and you have to name it at the top, right? What is it that this procedures, or what machine? And then the step by step. Yeah, they're similar. Nevertheless, because each machine is installed different, maybe the same machine installed in one of your establishments has a very different way of being connected to power source than at this other establishment. So each of those get their own lockout tagout. Do you see why? Because the source of the energy that's going to feed your machine may be different from one location to another. Sometimes we don't identify all energy sources for that piece of equipment. And I like that video that you saw with a sawmill, because the a residual motion of the blades was one type of energy that needs to be identified and train the actual authorized employee so that they know how to tell when the motion has stopped, how to block it, and then they can go ahead and do the task. And of course, there's steps because I'm missing the testing, verifying. Okay, so just mistakes right now, and then we'll see the actual steps, and then we'll talk about which one is the most important of those steps, right? Oh, well, here it is. Number 5, not verifying or testing that the energy has been isolated. So let's say a worker says, okay, my machine only has electrical energy. I'm going to go and my dough mixer, I just have to unplug it, and I'm going to go and unplug it, put my lock in my tag. Energy has been isolated. That's it. And then they start unjamming, but they never verified it or tested, right? And maybe that was not the actual breaker that was feeding that machine, and boom, the machine is actually starts working, and there it goes their finger. So verifying and testing before you start the activity allows for you to really see that you applied the lock and the tag in the right place. Sometimes buildings are old and they get refurbished, or there's some changes being done to the wiring, and you are locking out and tagging out the wrong breaker, right? The wrong device. Not using Lockout Tagout when equipment has an interlock system. Interlock systems are very interesting because they are not meant to be your only source of protection. Like I said, your guarding and your Lockout Tagout are two different safety things that protect the worker. So an interlock system is a guard, right? And so I'm going to go back to the dough mixing, because if you can picture in your mind a big industrial mixer at a bakery, let's say. Well, it has an actual guard that when you lift it, the mixer stops. So there is no mixing motion, right? So you lift the guard, that's an interlock guard because the machine stops. Now, the reason why that guard is an interlock guard is because it's meant for you to pour the ingredients. It's not meant for you to get your hands in there on jam, repair, or service the mixer, right? It's a guard that is a safety mechanism so that when it's opened, you can pour, or you can do, it's simply part of the job. It's simply part of the function of the machine. It's a guard. You do not put your hands in there, right? Now, if you need to clear a jam inside of the mixer, you cannot just open it and think everything is A-okay. You need to go and do the whole lockout tagout, identify the sources of energy, and make sure you isolate and put the lock and tag. And then for anything that is residual energy, or if, and all of this is done at the moment you're writing the procedures, right? If you're going to clear a jam, and you already know that when you clear those jams, the actual mixing mechanism has either a spring or whatever source of mechanical energy that is going to give in once you remove the jam, then you need to also block it. So restrain it so that as you restrain it and the person knows that, okay, that's part of the steps. We've actually taken a hold of that mixing arm. Now I can remove the jam, get my hands out, then remove the actual block that was blocking the release of mechanical energy. And it goes back to the steps, right? And now I can go ahead and restart the machine, but one, my hands are out. I will not get hurt. So interlock systems many times are used as your lockout tagout. They're not. That's one example. But nowadays we have a lot of robots, and they have guards or cages with interlock gates. And once that gate is opened, the robot inside stops. And so people have this false sense of security, employees, that because you open that door and the machine or the robot's powers down, that they can go inside and then injury occurs. They can remove or adjust, or, the arm made a slight mistake and didn't place the box the way it's supposed to. You go in and adjust it without locking out and tagging out. Well, that's an example of when an interlock system is used the wrong way, because it's not meant for you to go and unjam it or make an adjustment. It's just meant as a safety device in case someone opens that gate by mistake while the machine is functioning, that everything stops. Oh, oops, sorry. Close it. No problem. It's a guard. So an interlock system is a guard. It's not a lockout tagout device. Okay, the next one is the lack of training because we have authorized employees who work with the machines and sometimes they're not on site. And so the people that are the affected employees who use the machine feel that they are, that they should fix the machine, not wait for the maintenance people or the authorized employee. And so these are some of the flaws that we find most common lockout tagout mistakes. Another thing that gets cited often is the no audits. You're going to find once you read the regulation is that you're supposed to review your procedures for your machinery and equipment once a year. This is never done. So I don't know any of my clients that when I start working with them have records of the annual audits, but the better they get with the regulations, their specific procedures, they start doing them. And so that's what you want to do. Poor communication, of course, that's, workers around the machine or equipment that is being worked on are not informed that lockout tag will happen. And so there is poor communication and there's this big question mark. Oh yeah, that guy is there under the machine. He's working. Um, and then you go in and you're like, everything okay, buddy? Yeah. Did you apply lockout tag out? Um, no, so and so told me, that they didn't have the lock and there's that lack of communication. And that happens a lot with outside contractors. When you have people coming to fix your machines that are not your employees, and then there's a break of communication because you think that they know what they're doing because that's why they're there to work on the machine. And they didn't ask about your lockout tagout. No one said anything. And there you have a worker that might get hurt on your premises when you should have discussed lockout tagout with them, see what your steps, procedural steps are. And if he has lockout tagout for that machine, what are his procedural steps, and then combine them with yours because the source of energy needs to be identified because every place he goes as an outside contractor has maybe the same machine, but it is installed differently and the sources of energy are different. So he has to look at your lockout tagout procedures for that equipment that he's working on. So poor communication. Not completely filling out the tag. Just don't get tags that have a lot of name, date of completion, a lot of stuff on it that you don't fill out. Just, the name, and there's a requirement to say danger, do not start equipment, that kind of thing. Just a tag is supposed to identify the individual whose lock is attached to the isolating device and whose personal lock and who is working on the machine. So tag and lock. It tells you who that lock belongs to. Of course, there are systems where people do lockout tagout so often that they just color code or have a very good way of identifying who that lock belongs to. And so the tag is not required. Nevertheless, and you will see that those are nuances in the regulation. Nevertheless, don't get tags that have a lot of information on them and then you reuse them and have dates that are 3 years ago and then the tag is right there. So make sure that you keep your process nice, clean. Look at your tags. There are 3 training layers. You have other employees, affected employees, and authorized employees. So other employees, people that are around the equipment, but they don't clean it, they don't fix it, but they need to know not to mess with it, especially if and so they need to know what the lockout tagout hardware looks like. And what does that mean if they see the machine is down and they find a lock? It means don't mess with it. This is something that you do not want to get curious about and try and restart a machine. So that's with the other employees. The affected employees are the people that work with the machine. So they're usually that are at the conveyor belt. They're usually at the ensuring that that all this food gets into the grinder. Okay, they are the ones operating and working with the machine. But if they do not have lockout tagout training and they're not qualified, and there's the word in the regulation, it says qualified to actually fix the machine, they are not an authorized employee. Authorized employees many times are the same affected employee if they work with the machine and they also fix on jam and service the machine. So that employee could be both, but most of the time you have affected employees who use the machine who do not fix it. Okay, and you would have to have 2 layers of training there. This is another video, and this one is an interesting one. It's one of those robotic palletizing cells where there's a robot inside this cage with an interlock system. And I want you to watch it on your own time, and I want you to see this sequence. They call them trap keys. So the operator will turn off the machine. They'll do everything in the correct order, but it calls my attention that he can lock out and tag out the machine quite fast just to make an adjustment. So these are advancements in technology that will help you with those robotic arms that you're thinking, I cannot lock them out and tag them out. I cannot go to the energy source and lock it out just because I want to enter and adjust the piece of material. And so this is a great video that illustrates the right way. The only thing I'm still iffy about is how are they retesting? How are they testing and verifying that it's been locked out and tagged out? But it is a very good example. Nothing, I mean, the machine is locked. Both types of energies have been identified. So there's hydraulic and there is the electric. He turns off the machine, goes to both, locks them all. He doesn't apply tags, which to me is interesting, and it could have to do with the fact that he is the only one operating the machine at that moment. I also didn't, the video, it's advertising these systems. And so that's why I like this video, because it's advertising a system on how to get your robotic palletizing cells compliant by having a system of a trapped key. So unless that key is in there, you cannot restart the machine. The whole robot will not go. And so it's quick, it's easy. It helps with training. It helps with complying with the regulations so that people are not entering these cells relying only on the interlock, which is I open the gate and the machine stops, right? That's just the guard. The guarding requirement is that you isolate the moving parts from the worker in case of accidental contact with the moving part. It's just the guard. It's not intended for you to go in there and adjust or unjam. But if you're going to make adjustment, which often we have to do with palletizing robots, the robot did it, it's just a little bit off. You go in there and just move it. Well, that's an adjustment. You have to lock it out. And the video shows how quickly that can be done and how easy it can be done. All right. So first things first, you have to do an audit to determine the types of energy that feed your machinery and equipment. So from electrical to mechanical, chemical, hydraulic, pneumatic, potential, and others. And you can use forms like this one where you find the hazardous or energy power. So if it's electrical, is it battery operated? Is it a capacitor that also stores energy? What is it? And then the energy isolation disconnecting device. So just, is it a switch? Is it a motor control? Is it a power panel, right? And then you may have like 5 different power panels. So which number? Which one is the one that you are identifying as the one that feeds that machine? Mechanical energy, potential energy. And by the way, these forms are Kalosha forms. I don't think they're on the website, but most of the, because they update their procedures, but I like these forms. I still use them. If you want them, I can also attach them to the actual presentation file. But you see how awesome it is, because then you go through each of them and at the end is there any other? So please fill in the energy isolating or disconnect device for that type of energy. And I don't think on this list you have gravity, suspended load. Yeah, you have suspended load gravity on that first page. So pneumatic, chemical, thermal, etc. Okay, so here are your 6 basic steps to lock out and tag out a machine. You prepare for shutdown, and when you prepare your shutdown, you have to tell people, here's where the regulation requires that you go, hey, everybody, we're going to fix this machine, or we're going to unjam this machine. So I do not want you to mess with it. We're going to apply shutdown. Okay, so the actual lockout, Tagout, I'm sorry. And then shutdown, isolation, applying the tags in locks, control residual energy, and verifying. So here we go. So the purpose of preparation for shutdown, I'm sorry. Purpose, knowing the hazards touching the machine. So preparation to shutdown. It's, you know what, before we even start this activity, we need to go to all of those identified energy sources, right? And now we're going to get our specific written procedure. Take a look at, okay, so many times you already know it, and you will see in the video with the palletizing cell, that is something that he already knows, but it wouldn't hurt to have the laminated procedure step by step there. Switch off, and then, or number one, preparing for shutdown. Tell everyone around that you're going to do lockout tagout. Step number two, that kind of thing. Just a quick reminder for the worker who's going to be doing it, right? And it's a written specific for that machine, a procedure for that machine. Notifying all the affected employees, right? Very, very important. Then machine or equipment shutdown. Stop the machine using the normal operating procedures such as the off or stop button. And you wait for moving parts to stop. You will see in the video with the sawmill that that's what was missing there. Worker did not wait for the moving parts to stop, did not ensure all controls return to neutral. And so all of these things are part of your step-by-step procedure, right? Do not rely on emergency stop buttons, right? Because they don't isolate energy. Step 3, isolation of energy sources. You've got to open disconnect switches, close valves, block or bleed the line, because you got to really do the job of isolating each and every one of the energy sources that you identify. And then, you're going to each energy source has its own isolation point. So there are requirements nowadays for your main breakers to have a way to attach lockout tagout devices, right? And they also make hardware, for example, for air supply valves or hydraulic lines. They make devices so that they can be locked out and tagged out. So it goes around the valve, for example, a circular thing. If your valve is in circular form, then there's a device that goes around it, and it will accept a lock because it's required. And then you use appropriate lockout hardware, not just any lock, but specific for lockout tagout, and you buy it from your safety supplier, right? Then you apply the lockout tagout devices, which is securely applying the locks and tags to all the isolation points. Each authorized employee, because we said the authorized employee is the one that will fix or clear the jams or service the machine. He will put his own lock and his own tag. One person, one lock, right? And the tags include the employee's name, the date, the reason for lockout. And then for group lockout, there's other requirements, but that happens when a machine is complex enough that when it's down, it needs maybe the electrician, the mechanic, 2, 3 people to work on the machine. And so the way you do this now would be applying group lockout. And so you buy a box for group lockout. And so there's a main individual who will say, okay, I'm going to walk to each of the sources of energy. I'm going to apply the locks, and the keys to those locks go inside this box. And you guys who are working on the machine are going to attach your locks to the box. It all matches and rhymes. But here is another video that I think does a great job at explaining group lockout tagout. And of course, it's a trade safe. It's a products. So they are trying to sell you the group lockout tagout devices, the box with the actual hardware. But it's very nicely explained. Like I said, if we had more time, I would play all of these videos, but at least I'm giving you the information. I'm giving you the tools. So you go back and say, oh, wow, okay, so this makes sense. You're required to have an authorized one guy. So let's say it's the guy with the white helmet, the white hard hat. And he's like, okay, I am going to isolate electrical, mechanical. So he's walking around and making sure that he's supplying the lock and the tag for everyone to work on that machine. So you see the worker with the orange helmet, and let's say the orange helmets are all the electricians. So there's one individual who did all the locking out and tagging out energy sources. Will put those keys to those locks into that box. All right. This is how we protect people, because now all those keys cannot be accessed. They're inside this box that is locked with 10 different locks. From the electricians, you have the orange, and then you have the blue or the yellow for the different kinds of people that are working on that machine. And until they remove their lock from your box, you cannot actually access the keys to go and remove the locks from the energy sources, from the main breakers, from the valves, etc. Does that make sense? So very good. So now you release stored or residual energy. You eliminate any trapped, residual, or stored energy that could cause motion or pressure. This is when you look at gravity. This is when you look at, are those blades still moving? So I need to, and in machinery and equipment, the more modern it is, the more sensors it'll have. Maybe now it's a beeping sound that tells you that the blades have stopped moving, etc. So the more technology, the more modern your machines, the more of these safety devices. So now you're going to eliminate any trapped or residual or stored energy, like capacitors that store also energy, or any motion that could, like people have died fixing the big trucks, you know, when they raise the bed of the truck and they're in there without blocking and making sure that the bed of the truck doesn't come down on them. People have died because of the lack of lockout, tagout, in this case, blockout, because you got to put a block so that inertia and gravity, that type of energy doesn't come down and kill the worker. So very cool. And last, I think this is the last, but no, verification of isolation, you try, start, or test. So, you know, if it's electrical, you're going to test that there's no electricity going to the machine. If it's, and it's the attempt to start that machine and equipment. So you are going to press that start button. And little did you know that the machine started when you press the start button. You're thinking, what? But I applied the lock, right? I applied the lock, and the machine, when I pushed the start button or the on button, it started working. Something is really wrong. I am so happy that I am following my procedures because I'm verifying that I truly isolated the energy, and I didn't. So as you can tell, the most important step of lockout tagout is not applying the lock. It's actually this step, verifying, testing. Because now you test and the machine starts. And so you go back to your electrician and you go, oh yeah, we worked on some of the wiring over here and we transposed this and blah, blah, blah. We're working on the plans to make sure that we let you know and we haven't labeled it. And you're like, thank you, right? But this is why this layers, this step 6 verification of isolation. And then just a sample of, this is a general, okay? Once again, this is the type of lockout tagout procedure that you have, many of you have as your written lockout tagout program. So you take a form like this and you go, oh, okay, so this procedure establishes the minimum requirements for lockout tagout that could cause injury. Responsibility. The responsibility for seeing that this procedure is followed is binding upon all employees. And preparation for lockout. Employees authorized to perform lockout shall be certain as to which valve and other energy isolating. This is too general. You take this format and then you actually make it that is specific to machine number or lathe, you know, and you mention the actual model and make, and you put it onto your procedure, your written procedure. And so that's why I like this one a little bit more, because it goes which department, equipment number, location, old boiler room, the potential hazards, pneumatic, electrical, whatever it is. Methods of neutralizing, relieve pressure, lockout, tagout, and then your lock, very, very specific to notifying production supervisor and the affected crew. After completing step 1, shut down the equipment. If running a strain, you are not sure how, contact supervisor. Lock out the equipment following the lockout procedures at the wet transfer on rolls cabinet. So now it's very specific as to what location, where is it? A lot of people add pictures to this, which is a fantastic idea. Some of you also have to get safety permits, like hot work permit or all different types. It's a good idea to have safety permits before the maintenance activity takes place. Let's see, how much time do we have here? I think we're about to finish. Yeah, we have 3 minutes, and then you need to go to lunch and eat, because all of this information has depleted your brain cells like mine. So here's an example of those interlock systems, right? Here's the guard, worker is lifting the guard, the interlock guard, and the mixing arm stops. Don't rely on interlock systems to unjam, to fix, to adjust. Do not. Interlock systems are there many times because that's how you will dump all of these flour and ingredients, but not for you to service, unjam, or adjust. So it goes back to your definitions, right? It goes back to what activities are covered under this lockout tagout regulation. We do have some exemptions, which I can't get into, but plug and cord, or when several machines are identical. And if they're identical with the same sources of power and they can all be put in one single procedure, then that's okay. So you have to take a look at your machines and see what you can do in if you can put them all or group them all in one procedure, written procedure. So remember, zero energy means zero movement, zero pressure, zero voltage. Use the following mantra. I love this one. Identify what? How many types of energy? Isolate. We got to really stop that energy from being released when we are on jamming, servicing, maintaining, and adjusting, or setting up or clearing a jam on this machine. And once I isolate, I need to verify. So I love that mantra. And by telling you, yeah, use the mantra, identify, isolate, verify. I don't want you to think that those are the only steps. We went through the steps, but during training, it's important that you know, guys, these are the 6 steps. This is how we do it. Verification. Remember, verification is often the misstep in real world incidents, right? We talked about the ones that OSHA has out there, like dough mixer. There's a good one on Federal OSHA site and the training videos where an electrician is opened up a breaker and he was electrocuted, died because he locked out and tagged out the electrical energy to the panel that he was fixing, but the wiring had been changed years ago. He didn't know it. He didn't verify. He didn't test, and he died. So a simple step that gets missed, and these types of injuries with lockout tagout are bad. So for the safety culture gaps, they've done it this way for 10 years, nothing has happened, so it must be safe. It's out. We don't want that. Okay, so if they're doing it because of time constraints, time pressure, takes too long to find maintenance guy. The underlying belief is always, production matters more than procedure. Let's just keep going. We've done it like this before. It's okay. It's safe. Nothing happens. You gotta educate, train and educate, and also, do disciplinary procedures when people, in spite of training, continue to do it the old way. When OSHA shows up, they always want to see that you have an effective program, and that includes, records of disciplinary action. So sometimes overconfidence, I know this machine, I know how it behaves, my experience protects me, or that lack of understanding. And it's good to bring something like this. Use this slide if you want during your training and say, I know a lot of you are overconfident because you think your experience protects you. No, you will be disciplined if you don't follow the procedure. And then the younger guys, and sometimes not the younger and the old, but a lot of the times the more experienced guys get really mad at the newer guy who just took training, goes, hey, wait a minute, where's the procedure? Now, I'm not rolling with you if we don't do it like we were trained. And that helps. Okay, so we need good leadership habits that build safety culture. So the first thing is to model it, right? It's leading by example. So let's lock it out before clearing it. Let's, even if it takes longer. Come on, guys. Never walking past the violation, kind of, if they are doing this without following procedure and you see it, don't ignore it because it'll be repeated. And praise correct behavior. People like to be praised, and, coach also privately. So as much as you want to praise behavior publicly, that is positive behavior, safe behavior, do it publicly so everyone sees. But also all those reprimands, disciplinary, do it privately, because that way people don't get embarrassed, right? And everybody learns. Tie accountability to performance, incorporate safe work practices into evaluations or incentives. Don't incentivize non-reporting. So if people don't report injuries and you're incentivizing that with a 255 days without injury sign, if they get hurt, they don't want to say anything. So don't incentivize the wrong way. That's something else too. If you have questions about it, that's a whole other topic that we can go on for another hour. It is, what time is it, people? What time is it? Questions, please, because we are 3 minutes over our limit. I love talking to you today. I am so grateful that you stayed this whole hour. And I know that many of you are asking for the links and the and the actual slides. I mean, we can stop the recording now if you wish, Veronica, and then I can go over some of the chat and the comments. But thank you, everyone. Have a